President Muhammadu Buhari inaugurates Economic Council, tax members on security, health, agriculture and economic development. Nigeria banking outlook stable, says Moody's investors. Importation of used vehicles through land borders remains banned. Plus, oil prices climbed on improving U.S. demand signs as OPEC agrees to meeting date. Details of these and more will come your way on Business Express, reaching you from Abuja, the nation's capital. I am Muplang Dakok. Members of the National Economic Council have been tasked to fashion out effective strategies towards lifting the less privileged Nigerians out of poverty and secure the nation's future for sustainable growth and development. President Muhammadu Buhari, who threw the challenge while inaugurating the National Economic Council, says paying special attention to issues of security, education, health and agriculture is critical towards guaranteeing a peaceful and prosperous Nigeria. Adamu Sambo reports that the council, chaired by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, includes governors of the 36 states. During the inauguration, President Buhari restated his administration's commitment to protecting Nigeria's territory and urged state governors to find ways of increasing their state's internal revenue.
Notwithstanding the political leaning of the governor or the predominant party in power at the state level, I want this to be your model at the state level. No matter which party we belong to, let us shun divisive policies and join hands together for the upliftment of our people.
As Your Excellency directed at the meeting of the 7th of June, the state governors, we are focusing on the crucial issue of national security, and we will be forwarding the outcome of our deliberations to you very shortly.
In its continued efforts towards increasing viability of macro, small and medium enterprises, the federal government has begun financial support services for cooperatives in 109 local government areas through the One Local Government, One Product, OLOP initiative. Diko Umaru Rada, Director General of the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, SMEDAN, at the signing ceremony of a memorandum of understanding to that effect, disclosed that the federal government is giving as much as 5 million naira to the beneficiaries with a flexible repayment plan.
Out of the total amount of money we are giving for the machinery and the working capital, they are only paying back 70% of the money, and they are paying in 18 months.
We have seen that this is a sector that's really contributed up to 50%, more than 50% to the GDP of the country, so they are very important. We should not take them for granted.
In our generation, we see that the white-collar jobs are not paying, or in most cases, they are not even available. So we have decided to take this up to some commercial level.
It is hoped that all local government areas would be covered in due course. The initiative seeks to enhance productivity in every local government area of the Federation in line with the produce they are known for. Business Express is reaching you from our Abuja studios. The program will continue after this break. Dr. Tefa Abraham joins us to look at the topic, bringing down the nation's poverty indices. He is a financial and development economist and a member of the Nigerian Economic Society. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Happy to see you.
All right.
Thank you.
So the World Bank puts Nigeria's poverty at almost 87 million. It says about 87.9 million Nigerians are poor. So what do you see about this figure, considering the fact that the economy is still growing?
Once again, thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah.
That World Bank report says 87 million Nigerians are in extreme poverty. You know, the problem about measuring poverty is that poverty in itself is difficult to define. There's a relative dimension, there's an absolute dimension. The way people see themselves as poor changes as economic conditions change. So the World Bank, of course, are a credible institution, so they have objective methodology that they might have used to reach their findings. But when you come back home, we cannot deny the fact that Nigerian economy has been growing. Whether or not that growth has been able to create jobs and bring people out of poverty is something else, and it depends on prices of food items and ability to meet basic needs. But generally, the fact that Nigerians are poor cannot be denied. But another thing we cannot deny is the effort that the current administration is making to see that the economy grow. How people decide to use their innate ability to catch up with that speed in growth in order to come out of poverty is something else.
Okay. Yeah. So what would you say is the relationship between poverty and the sustainable development goals, especially being that the federal government is putting in a lot of efforts?
Okay, poverty is the nucleus of the SDGs. In fact, it's the #1 goal of the Sustainable Development Agenda, which is to eradicate. That's the #1 goal, to eradicate poverty. If you compare its cousin, which was the MDGs, the aim of that was to halve poverty by 2015. So this time, but unfortunately, as at 1991, there were like 51 million Nigerians in poverty. By 2015, it became 91 million. So from 2015, which this current administration came into being, the goal is now to eradicate poverty.
So how do you think the government has fared in that?
The government started immediately with the strategic implementation plan for 2016 budget. And in 2017, did not waste time to launch the ERGP. And if you follow how these programs have been implemented by the daily, you see the effort being recorded. Already, you have they have a lot of intervention programs going on, because poverty is not a short-term phenomenon, it's long-term. So this administration was smart enough to understand that dynamic and to come up with programs to intervene using the CIBN Anchors Brewers program, even the social investment intervention program. These are interventions that are necessary to help the Nigerian economy come out of poverty.
Okay. Yeah. So what are these indices that seem to be driving poverty in Nigeria, such that despite the effort of government, the poverty rate is still high? What are those indices that keep sustaining this poverty?
Thank you very much again. The determinants of poverty or causes of poverty, we can group them traditionally into two factors. There are traditional factors, I beg your pardon, and others that are based on disequilibrium in the economy. The traditional factors are corruption, lack of infrastructure, basic lack of access to healthcare and education. These are the traditional factors. But the other factors are like high interest rates, changes in inflation. When you add unemployment with increase in inflation, you get what economists call misery index. And if you see how inflation data has been going up recently, adding that to unemployment, the way economists will measure it is that more Nigerians are becoming miserable by the day. And sometimes that's what economists use to translate and measure, to make statements that the economy seem not to be improving. But the indices to look at, for which this government is not allowing, is putting its hands on deck, is to tackle the issue of official corruption, because through corruption, programs meant to reach people who are meant to benefit from the program are being denied. So if you tackle poverty, corruption in that sense, what government intervention will reach those for which the program was targeted at meeting. So, number one, corruption.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about your award in 2015.
Oh, okay.
You received the African Development Bank's award called Making Finance Work for Africa Research. So what did you find out, talking about poverty? What did you find out?
Okay, in 2015, I received that award. Making Finance Work for Africa is affiliated to the African Development Bank and so many other institutions. The summary of that finding was that to bring out people from poverty, we need to increase access to financial services, which include insurance, access to credit. We also need to increase government programs targeted at people that are poor, especially those in the farming sector, especially the poorest of the poor, which we call those in the bottom 20% quintile. So you need to increase access to finance and help them to also get insurance from their crops, because those in the agri sector, especially farming, are the most poor. And that sector has become even more risky due to the vagaries of climate change, through drought, flash floods, desertification, and things like that. So it's important that through government intervention and ensuring that there are access to credit, that finding argued that more people will cross the poverty line.
Okay. You talked about access to finance. I was going to ask you the place of finance in poverty reduction. What do you think?
Finance play a very critical role in poverty reduction, because poverty basically is a rural phenomenon, traditionally speaking. Those who are most poor, you can reach the population of those who are most poor by looking at the structure of the Nigerian economy. The Nigerian economy is agriculturally driven from the rural aspect. And what these people get as their product cannot even pay for the tuition or education of their own children. And because of difficulty of having access to good road, access to credit, they cannot even cope with the challenge of climate change that climate change has brought to make farming more difficult. They have bumper harvests that they cannot store because no commodity boards. There used to be commodity boards in the 70s. It's important that government bring policies like that back. But in the meantime, for them to be able to build their own commodity kind of board, like in the form of ban, that are weather resistant, they need access to credit to be able to meet those challenges.
Okay. We talked about access to finance. Now let's talk about education. How important is education to reduction of poverty? It
is extremely important. And I must rush to say that in this case, we will not define education as the classical Western education alone. Education that farmers, for instance, get from extension workers is education. Education that we get to teach us how to invest is education. Education that we get to teach us early behavioral patterns towards savings and investment is education. Generally speaking, enlightenment, capacity building is how I would say it as. And there's a strong link in economic theory that households that are more educated have higher income. So the idea is that if we're able to teach our people, build the capacity of our people, either through vocational studies, handwork, or the conventional education, provided that they are employed or they're able to create jobs, then we hope to see that as education rises, the poverty curve will drop. But once unemployment challenges education face to face, and the quality of education from the home front and at religious centers is not targeted at capacity building, then we'll notice that relationship will not be respected. But generally, education plays a serious role in poverty reduction.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what type of synergy would you expect to see from policymakers as well as the various arms of government and the levels of government? What do you expect to see between them in terms of tackling this issue of poverty?
First of all, I will begin from the levels of government: executive, judiciary, and legislature. Year in, year out, since our return to democracy in 1999, what we see is that various governments will come with social intervention programs that are not sustainable. It ends and the other one begins. Currently, one that this administration has done that's really yielding result is the social safety, is a national safety net program. Yes. That is a very nice intervention program. What is urgently needed is for the legislature to follow that up by backing it up with an act of parliament, so that this policy will become sustainable, to enable the coordinating office of that program to reach out to people who are of the poor to help them come out. You know, one misconception Nigerians, I beg your pardon, have about that program is that they think those people target those to intervene randomly or in a non-scientific manner. That's not true. The coordinating office of that program has a scientific way of reaching out to people who belong to the poorest of the poor group to know who to intervene. You know, generally speaking, if you permit me, when you administer questionnaires, you beg people not to put their names, their address, and things like that. That's for academic purpose. But for a government intervention program, you include your names, age, gender, street address, home address. So by the time the analysis is done, you can be targeted. The poorest of the poor can be targeted. So the VP and his team or the coordinating office of that program can specifically drive to an address, go to a specific home, find a specific person who that analysis show to be poor in that street and actually give that handout. But the problem is that if there's no act of parliament to ensure that that program is sustainable, I'm afraid it will become shaky. So that's one coordination that is very important.
All right. Let's talk about governors, state governors, and local government chairmen. Do you think, or what role should they play? Should they leave this tackling or handling of poverty to the federal government?
Not at all. In fact, the commitment for the local government level should be extremely very larger than large. Because if you imagine a pyramid, the local government is down there. They are largest in population, largest in resource concentration, largest in potential, followed by the state and the federal. So, but the problem is that those at the local government look at the federal to pass down policy handout to help eradicate poverty at the base. But that debate is a whole lot complicated because of the nature of our federalism, resource allocation structure. But by and large, to see effective results in terms of poverty eradication, there need to be serious commitment by all. In other words, the ERGP we have at the federal level, we need to say an ERGP for the state, ERGP for the local government level as well.
All right, so do you see any improvement? Say in this, this administration has started another 4 years. So what do you see playing out in the next 4 years? Do you see any improvement?
Well, people have their own opinion, but for me, I think this administration next 4 years is a good one in the sense that any uncertainty that it should have come with if it was a new government has been erased. We are sure of policy continuity. You can see what the current administration did with the central bank. Yes. The reappointment of Governor Emefiele, for instance, is a sure signal to the international market that Nigeria's monetary policy will continue along this trajectory. And that's why Christine Lagarde was quick to congratulate the central bank governor, because she understands that retaining him will give a direction on monetary policy perspective. Same thing for the macroeconomic, for the fiscal aspect and other aspects. The return of this administration in its second term, I see a lot of hope because there's no longer uncertainty in the business world or in the consumption world. But what is important, sorry, madam, is that there's need for us to know heads of these MDAs and the rest on time, because they represent continuity in policy. And if they will not be changed, it's important to also know immediately at the same time. Still
talking about poverty, very briefly, do you see the indices coming down, like seriously?
For poverty indices to drop, extreme poverty and all, it will take a while, because poverty, like I said, is a long-term phenomenon. Macroeconomic policies, which is monetary and fiscal, are counter-cyclical policies. These are short-term, at best 1 year, 2, 3 years. We tried that in the 80s when SAP was introduced. There's a policy that the World Bank introduced called poverty reduction strategies. It was short-term in nature, 3 years. But years after that, you see that poverty went up. So, but what this administration is doing is these interventions need to be sustained. And so long as that is continued, I see poverty indices going down.
All right.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tefa Abraham, for sharing your thoughts with us on Business Express.
Thank you very much. My appreciation.
All right. Yes. Moving on, Nigeria continues to partner investors from around the world in its effort towards industrialization and economic stability. The latest partnership is at the instance of the Nigerian Embassy in France. It put together a 3-day Nigeria-France Business and Investment Summit with the theme Investment Opportunities in Nigeria from Talk to Action, with the aim of matchmaking Nigerian businesses and agencies with investors from France. The report. 4 years has seen the federal government put in place policies and strategies to make the investment climate more favorable. One notable benefit of such friendly policies is the improvement in the ease of doing business ranking of the World Bank, which saw the Nigerian economy advance 25 places, coupled with a better tax regime. This has made more countries to now show interest in investing in Nigeria, and this forum alone is hosting 27 companies from France who have shown interest in different sectors of the economy.
So please move from the European comfort zone of viewing Nigeria as an unsafe country to seeing it as a country that has a booming economy. And so therefore, please move from talk to action.
Strategic plans such as the Nigeria Industrial Revolution Plan, NIRP, provide integrated roadmaps towards attracting investment in all sectors of the economy.
We're focusing more on the non-oil sector, and last year, or 2 years running, especially last year, 54% of our revenue came from the non-oil sector.
The forum is coming after the first meeting of France-Nigeria Investment Club held in France, January this year. Organizers hope it will increase trade and commercial activities between the two countries. The Nigerian Stock Exchange closed the last trading day of the week, 21st June 2019, in positive territory. The all-share index appreciated by 0.29% to close at 29,851.29 basis points. 189 million shares were traded, worth 4.161 billion naira in 3,089 deals. Market capitalization stood at 13.154 trillion naira. Zenith, GT Bank and WAPCO dominated trade. Shares retreated in Asia on Friday after a broad rally for stocks drove the S&P 500 index to an all-time high as weak manufacturing data from Japan helped dampen investor sentiment. Details with Amina Nujem.
The Bank of England has kept its main interest rate on hold at 0.75% and warned that a combination of Brexit worries and global trade tensions were weighing on growth. In the meantime, the FTSE 100 was up 0.30%, DAX 0.23%, as well as CAC 40 0.42% to post 5,558.63. In the United States, there is talk of Dow 29,000 basis points and even 32,000 basis points with low interest rate. High stock prices may be justified. The S&P 500 also posted appreciations of 0.95%, while Nasdaq was 0.80%. Shares retreated in Asia on Friday as weak manufacturing data from Japan helped dampen investor sentiment. Japan's Nikkei went down 0.95%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index 0.27% gave up 0.5% as protesters again gathered in front of government offices. The Shanghai Composite appreciated 0.50%, rising 0.2%. In Africa, market sentiments were mixed. South Africa's JSE Top 40, Nairobi All-Share Index and Tunis SE Tunidex were all positive, while Namibia and Ghana's JSE Index were negative. That's Global Market Reports.
Brent oil paid its biggest weekly increase in 4 months after President Donald Trump pulled back from retaliatory strikes on Iran for downing a U.S. drone as tensions flare in the Middle East. A quick look at commodity prices. With that, we've come to the end of this edition of Business Express. Remember, you can access all previous episodes on YouTube, and you can also communicate with us on Twitter, and the handle is @NTA News Now. The hashtag is BZEX. Keep the mails coming. I am Muplang Dakok.